Do you think you're in control of your life? Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something that you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it in the last decade. There's something wrong with society. You don't know exactly what it is, but it's there. We live in a world of illusions. Those illusions are somehow broken since 2008, but in fact, people still think that things are pretty good. Restaurants are full, the movie houses are full, people are still spending money. We have some kind of selective depression. There are people who are out of work who are really hurting, who can't raise their money. And there are those people that are at the receiving end of the recession. We live under the illusion of prosperity, that these things are coming back. You've been down there. You know that road. You know exactly where it ends. And I know that's not where you want to be. I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down a rabbit hole.
Enough. We want real and complete news. Hello everyone and welcome to Short and Sweet. Today is a pretty exciting day actually because we have not only Kevin Davenport with us, Kyler Davenport, sorry about that. We also have a guest today, Max Colby. I hope I said your last name right. Is that correct, Max?
Well, actually, I go by Max Dean Esme. Max Esme is fine. But anyway, I'm with redpillreligion.com. Come say hi anytime.
Sweet. I'll make sure after we get done here to get a link to your site and get that in our description. So I had a funny thing just happen on the screen here. I lost the picture of Kyler. Are you still there, Kyler?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Can I ask Max, can you shut off your particular picture you put on the screen? Because I actually cut out Kyler. So we'll get this, guys. All right, hang in there a second. Kyler should pop back on in a minute. Are you still there?
I'm open. Yeah, I'm open. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, you'll come back on.
Can't
There
get
you
rid
are.
of me.
There he
You
is,
can't get rid
guys.
of
Sorry
me.
for the delay.
Can't get rid of me. Yeah.
Yeah, so I need to go off the screen and make sure that we have room for. And Max, you're hearing everything okay?
You're all good, guys.
All right, sorry about that, folks. All right, so now I want to get to our subject. So last week on Short and Sweet, we were talking about prepping and generally the cause and effects. But today I have two pretty worldly people on the show today, and so I thought I'd kind of take the show to prepping, but I wanted to take it a little farther of of what the root cause is. This, why are we even thinking about prepping in the first place? And so I'm going to ask the two gentlemen we have on the show today to give us a perspective of some things that we should be aware of. And I'm asking, we can't go into deep detail because we're trying to keep our show short and sweet. But at the same time, I'm going to bring up a couple of subjects here, and then I'm going to let each of the new speakers here talk. And so what I've written down for what causes us to even think about prepping is the basic main reason is a general emergency, which we're all witnessing right now over watching Florence over on the East Coast. There's going to be folks there without power for weeks. And water's an issue because everything that's out there is polluted. So in a short-term situation, prepping makes great sense if you're in areas that have high degree of weather issues. Of course, there's earthquakes and things like that. So, but there's also a bigger picture of things where it can be global. It could be weather-related. It could be EMP, war, or terrorism, or basically a society issue. So with that in mind, I'll start with Kyler, and then you and Kyler, please feel free to bring in Max into your conversation or what you'd like to say about that.
Well, you can run from super tornadoes to massive earthquakes. We're sitting on a 9.5, potential 9.5 right here under my rear end right now. Tsunamis, which could happen on the West Coast, a nuclear war by some major government or some rogue faction, economic collapse, government tyranny, global pandemic, and dozens of others that I can think of. I'm right here just outside the kill zone of Yellowstone. And So it's very, very scary. And so, you have to be able to prep for the area that you're in, I think, is better for your budget. I don't think you should prep to climb over mountains if you're in a desert area. And you're not going to be able to throw a can of beans at someone to repel them from stealing all of your food. You're going to have a weapon. So you need to think. You need to write a list out. You need to have a family meeting, and you need to discuss what are we planning for? What are we prepping for? What are we getting ready for? And what type of supplies make the most sense?
Yeah, but won't the government take care of me?
The government's not going to take care of you at all. And after 3 days, the government's pretty much run out. We've interviewed 5 different locations here on the coast, and they've all admitted that they're going to run out of supplies within 72 hours. And it's a very scary situation. They're going to run out of supplies in 72 hours if we have a major occurrence down here. Everybody's going to be for themselves, and you have to realize that. Everybody has to understand the government's not going to be flying in with Hueys, and they're not going to be dropping supplies like you see on TV. You're probably going to be on your own, and you're probably going to need to get to know your neighbors very well, and not tell everyone, don't trust everyone to know that you're a prepper. Only trust those maybe war veterans who are prepping also, and find folks that you can work together with that are diversified in their skills and their talents and their experiences, and be able to put a team like that together and be ready for anything. Max, do you have anything?
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that, I mean, and not everybody's a prepper, everybody's ready to be a prepper. The general thing I would say is that you should do as much as you can for wherever you are, and whatever your means are, because it's not paranoid. Okay, let's pretend that Kylie and everybody else in this conversation is nuts, and the monetary system is fine, and government security systems are fine, and nothing bad's going to happen. Okay, if you believe all that, fine. You're not paranoid to take precautions anyway, and a lot of times you're going to want to look at where are you. Like, I've looked at the area I'm in. Given the concentration of wealth and whatnot that I'm in, my biggest concern isn't going to be breakdown of social services. Mine is probably going to be more about who the government's probably not going to collapse here in this part. Like if you're in the Washington, D.C. area, the government's probably not exactly going to collapse on you. So, I mean, the in my opinion, the set of preparations you need to make are on a different set of assumptions than if you are way out in the country. Because if you're out in the country, you have different things you have to worry about, including the fact that you're not necessarily safe out there. A lot of people out in the country are of the opinion that they're safe because they're out in the boonies. But guess what? If people know where you are and they know you got stuff, they're going to come take it from you. And they might even kill you and enjoy doing that.
But don't you think people are going to stay with the normal laws and regulations of the Constitution and all that stuff when something like that happens? I'm being a smarty, but so what do you think? I mean, don't you think that maybe we try to abide by our laws, and don't you think people would care for one another and things like that? I mean,
the trick.
No, I do not. No, I do not. I believe by and large people are vile and not good. I think that you want to be, and I'm going to say I'm not the world's best prepper, but I mean you want to be involved in. If you don't have extensive family around you, then you need to be looking at making some friends that you genuinely trust and know, either through fraternal organizations or through churches that haven't been taken over by the social justice forces. You need people that you know, because I truly believe that. I mean, if you think you're going to be one man on an island alone and protecting his family because you got your guns and you got your crates of food and you got your security system, that is still not going to cut it long term. People who want to destroy you can come and find you, or people who want to take your stuff can come and find you. You want allies, you want friends. That's probably the most important thing. And guess what? You're going to be dealing with a lot of blue-pilled people who do not take you seriously, and call you paranoid and call you wacky and say stuff about tinfoil hats. Find the people who aren't going to do that to you, because I think that a growing number of people are seeing, look, some bad stuff could come down at any time, and we are likely to be on our own. And you should make whatever precautions you think you can. It's within your budget, man. Even if it's just low tech, and the best you can do is save up some canned foods in your basement and ammo, and that is the best you can do. At least be doing that.
So my question would be: do you think it's a good idea to maybe try to find like-minded people before a catastrophe or emergency happens? So,
yes, yes, absolutely. That's why I'm saying I would really be looking at joining organizations. Don't think you're going to do it all on your own. I really don't think it's possible. I mean, as a good Catholic, I shouldn't recommend the Freemasons, but hell, you know, I mean, if you're in with your local Masons, if you're in with your local Knights of Columbus, if you're in with a good church that's locally, if you're in with any kind of organization that has serious like-minded people, you are going to be better off than suddenly in the middle of an emergency looking for people to help you and people who you can trust, because that's the last, you know, it's too late then. You want to know who you can trust. Like, I'm in a bad situation, and all my neighbors are, you know, I'm not in a tight-knit community here. So I have to look at other things. But yeah, you want to be prepping as best you can and thinking hard about what conditions are going to be like in your local area and who are your friends going to be in an emergency. I think those are your most important questions. I really do.
Agreed. Kyler?
Yeah, I just was going to say your budget is very important, and the Goodwill is where we find most everything that we need, and we have found most everything that we need at the large Goodwills here, and we have a couple of other thrift stores here that really have a lot of survival gear. It is unbelievable what they have. You just have to shop when the loads are coming in. You have to get to know the manager of the store, get to know some of the employees, and they will call you on the phone when some good stuff comes in. They will even put it back for you if you will give them an idea of what you're looking for. This is how we've gleaned most of our supplies and materials and equipment, is at the Goodwill. They have a lot of things for propane. They have a lot of Coleman stove equipment. They have a lot of sleeping gear. They have a lot of survival gear. And the biggest thing when you're in an emergency is water, food, security, and shelter. Those are the four things you need to worry about the most, because you can't live without water but about 3 days. You can't live without food without 3 to 4 weeks. And you definitely need security, some type of weapon, and you need to learn how to use it, and you need some shelter. You've got to have shelter depending on where you live. That might be a lighter shelter, not so much to worry about. It might be a terrible situation where you really need to worry about being 30 below zero. So look at that. Look at all of those factors, and also look at your budget, and also shop. Don't go online and shop at these expensive places where they're trying to sell you a bill of goods for $64.95 and $105 for, you know. Don't do that. Go to the Goodwill, go to the junk shops, and search those out, and you will find the best deals.
Yeah, so I want to show you guys 2 new products that I just got from my prep room. I actually have a prep room. I'm not hardcore. I mean, it's still doing simple things, but last time we did a show, and Kyler was laughing at me, is my dog started barking, because guess who showed up? Amazon. And what came in that day, and I'll show it on the screen here, is I have a new first aid emergency kit. It's a Zenwell, they call it, and I put a link down in the description where you guys can go look at what's all in these. And I got this for like I think like $24 to $29, and cool. So now I'm very comfortable now that I have at least a halfway decent first aid kit, but it is not a trauma kit. And there's better first aid kits out there, but you just do what you can while you can. And the other thing I wanted to show you was you and I were talking about the book, The Last Minute. And one of the most frustrating things out there is communication. And so I wanted to show this little product, which is a solar radio I bought, which also can crank up to a mini generator that's in it. So I will have some kind of radio available even if I don't have batteries. And of course, my landscapers decided to show up in my front yard today.
It's always
So
something.
if you
isn't
hear
it?
a buzzing
We
in the
go on the air.
background, apparently they decided to show up today, and he's probably
You know-
going to ring my doorbell too.
You know, Rob, those walkie-talkies that go supposedly 3 to 5 miles, those work really well. Also, I wanted to
Yeah.
tell people to work on a different frequency than what would go down. And also, CB radios are good to use at first for communications. So I wanted to mention that. And you know, FEMA and DHS are definitely not going to be there for you. So I want you all to just forget about FEMA and DHS. I mean, don't rely on FEMA and DHS or you will be dead. You will be dead.
So I'm going to be reaching for my microphone a little bit because I told you if we did a show, my landscaper or somebody come to the door. So I'm sure you can hear buzzing in the background, and I want to apologize, but
It's not bad.
I don't usually do shows this early in the afternoon. So.
It's not bad at all.
Okay, good. I do use a condenser mic, so it does help. So anyway, what I want to do is we do more shows about prepping, and our shows are not just going to be about prepping, but I'm sure that you and I will keep revisiting this. And so as I've been coming across you, I was talking to Kyler earlier about a little solar generator, solar charging system that I'm getting ready to buy, and some things. And as I show these, I want to kind of share them with our audience too. One is to motivate them and find out that some of the things we're talking about is not that expensive. Like, for example, having salt and sugar. You can get the little equivalent to Morton salt in those little round jugs they have. And at Safeway, I got them on sale for 79 cents, and maybe a dollar store you could get them cheaper, 2 for $1 or something.
Yeah.
I also watched a video the other day of a guy that showed some really great products, and especially food items and stuff that could last a long period of time that he bought at the dollar store. So between your suggestion of Goodwill and maybe dollar stores and stuff like that, there's some really good things out there that you can just put in your garage, put in the back bedroom or something like that to get prepared a little better. So
yeah, I wanted to quickly mention to build a false pantry in your front kitchen. Build a false pantry with a few food items in it and put the real one somewhere else in the house.
Yeah,
because that is the oldest trick in the book. People will come in and they'll steal everything you have in your false pantry, but all of your real supplies are hidden. So make sure and do that. Otherwise, they'll strip you blind. And also look at some pictures of the Great Depression when people were all dressed up with nowhere to go except the food line and the soup line. My mother and father went through that. I've still got the old tickets for the soup line.
Wow.
I've still got the old tickets from the Great Depression, and I've got all the pictures of people standing begging in the food lines. And it's a horrible, tragic situation to look at when you actually see the pictures of what's going on in Venezuela and some of these other places. It's really a terrible situation.
Sure.
And people need to realize just how dangerous this situation is that we're talking about today. A lot of people will brush this off and they won't look at it. But you have to look at it, and you have to be prepared. Everyone needs to be prepared, especially for your children, to keep them safe and keep them sound.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to bring up is, like, we're all in different regions. I know Max is over towards the East Coast more than we are. So what are some of the biggest climatic or weather issues that would come up in each other's area? So I'm in the Arizona area. So heat things related, but for us it'd be brownouts or power going out would be catastrophic here. And we could be influenced quite a bit if California had a major earthquake. It could affect our grid over here. You're up in Washington. What's some of your worries?
Oh, I'm not in Washington. I'm in Michigan. I'm just on the East Coast. Yeah, my part of Michigan happens to be quite the county I live in is quite affluent, and it's near Port. So most likely, if things go apart, the authorities will try to keep order in this area. So, and I'm not in a flood zone in the place that I'm at, but people do want to check that. Yeah. My concerns, because I'm fairly confident that civil order will not completely break down where I am, because I happen to be in an area, I have a different set of issues. moves, right? I don't think, because of exactly where I am, I don't think we'll lose power unless it's on purpose. I do think our biggest issue will be civil unrest and how much you can trust the governing authorities, which will be not at all, especially if you're known as a political malcontent, which if you're already identified as one is too late for you. Just try and keep your head down. Michigan's a cold weather state, so you want to be able to survive cold weather in case your furnace is no longer working. Otherwise it's a matter of, do you have shelter? Do you have clean water? Do you have food? Those are probably the main ones. And do you have the ability to defend yourself? And do you have friends that you can trust? So.
Definitely. And Kylie, you're up in Washington there, so you got a lot of mountains and a couple of volcanoes, don't you?
Washington State, though, right? Not Washington, D.C. Very different.
Right,
state.
right. Yeah, I've got a lot of mountains surrounding me where I am right now in an undisclosed location here. I've got a lot of mountains surrounding me. Literally, I am in the valley of all of the mountains. And so I can go up very, very, very high, or I can go down very, very, very low. And I can kind of choose my climate. We have microclimates here, so I'm kind of in an advantageous situation here. I also have many creeks and rivers and streams that are just brimming over with trout and salmon and perch and bass and channel cats, just brimming over with marine life. And so I'm also in the wetlands where there's a lot of geese and ducks to kill and eat. And I'm also a wild food plant nut. So, and I'm not afraid to eat stump larvae and crickets and grasshoppers. I've done that a lot in my survival training. So we're going to make it here, I think, if we don't have any problems from the outside, if we don't have to worry about security too much. Right now, I'm in a small town here in the wetlands of about 10,000 people where everybody knows everybody. Everybody helps everybody. So there's another good thing. I'm away from the large cities of Portland. I wouldn't want to be in Portland in a situation like this at all. Yeah. So I'm very happy where I am. I'm very content where I am, and I'm very confident that where I am is a good place, except for the fact that, as I said before, we are in the second kill zone, just outside the first kill zone of Yellowstone, and we're also sitting on top of a very much overdue 9.5 earthquake here in the Northwest. So that could create a tectonic plate movement that would create a tsunami. There's also the chances for an asteroid impact. And as you said, an EMP from either a man-made EMP or a solar flare from the sun, which could knock out the north to south grid, and we could be down for weeks, months, years. And we also have hacking to worry about. There's thousands of hacks that go on every day from Russia to the United States, China to the United States, et cetera, et cetera. And some of these rogue countries are trying to knock our grid down constantly. Our grid is very old, worn out, it's antique, and we really do need to worry about these things.
Definitely. I think another thing is, I don't care what region you're in, whether you're up in Northwest like yourself or over near Michigan or Arizona, we all have a commonality of a water problem. Mine's a water source, but even when water is available up Northwest like you guys, you can't necessarily trust it to drink. So one of the other things I always emphasize to people is have some kind of water treatment or filters or tablets and things like that in your prep kit, because no matter where you're at, you may have fresh water now, but even to take water out of streams and rivers can have some issues. And so I would put that as a very high priority, because you can live quite a while without food, but not very long without water. Yeah.
Water filtration, very important. Max, do you need to go?
No, sir, I do not. I was just checking the time. I'm fine.
Okay. I wanted to make sure. But yeah, Rob, water filtration, there are so many different types of systems out there. It's unbelievable. They're almost hard to count.
Yeah.
And so one needs to be very, very careful what type of water filtration system and what type of water collection system they buy. There's also water collection systems. Go ahead, Matt.
Collection, yeah, water storage is a huge problem. You want to look at if you're going to be storing water for yourself, which is not a bad idea, you want to make sure that you have containment vessels that are the right kind, that will not burst,
definitely.
that will not contaminate, some plastics. You don't want to be drinking water that's been sitting in that plastic jug for 6 months or a year.
They green up.
Yeah,
they
you've
turn
got to
green.
have the right containment vessels. I got to admit, I don't have them because I've been going one step at a time. We have a home filtration system, and we've added a water distiller.
Good.
All of it not very expensive. Distilled water is going to be your safest to drink overall, just because it really gets everything just about. Simply because distilling evaporates the water. So so you're getting nothing but pure H2O in any chemicals that have a near identical evaporation point to water, which don't exist. So you even get the fluoride and the chlorine and all that completely removed if you get a distiller. Filter for the house and a distiller for what we drink. Now our next step is going to be to start getting some containment vessels so that we can store a lot of that distilled water safely. We haven't taken that step yet. Pray it's not too late, but like I would tell everybody, do what you can when you can. Every little bit helps some,
Right, Max, right.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you guys about in the future is, in a show in the future, I'd really like to get into some more of the global, and I know this is a deep, this is a rabbit hole, but I'd like to talk about some of the global threats that we have, not necessarily, here and abroad, of what could cause us or put us in a situation where a lot of people need to worry about and start thinking about prepping or being prepared. And I know that all three of us have kind of different religious backgrounds that we apply some of our beliefs and understandings to. I love to start getting a debate or a good discussion about making people aware to start looking at what's going on around us that could also put us in this situation, and how prepping is just a piece of something much bigger.
Even if you're not a spiritual person or you believe it's all a bunch of crap, the reality is that the spiritual is real anyway. Let's even pretend you believe the common belief that all the spiritual, supernatural, religious stuff is all fake and phony, which I don't believe. Even if so, many other people do, and so it affects their behavior. So, and it matters, both in good ways and bad ways. If somebody's into a freaky satanic religion, that's probably not a good sign, for example. Ditto, if somebody says they're a Christian, well, you want to figure out, well, what kind of Christian, how seriously do they take it? Because I really do believe you want to be making religious friends right now, because those of you who are against religion or not religious at all, you're missing out on something, which is that the religious population is never going away, and they're the ones most likely to survive as groups long term, by the way, unless they're targeted for slaughter. So even, for example, while I might have issues with Mormonism, being a Mormon right now would be safer than not.
That's for sure.
Being in any good, solid church that isn't run in a cultish fashion, that has smart, responsible, capable people in it, good, do that. If you can't make yourself join a church for whatever reason, then find some other organization of people. It matters. But I think the spiritual matters, and you should be studying the spiritual no matter what, because even if you're one of those, it's all a bunch of crap and religion is mind control and blah, 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 you still need to understand how other people's minds think, because they're not going to be changing their minds for you. So I'm up for a religious discussion anytime.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily all religious discussion. I guess I want to talk about the fundamentals of a lot of common ones, but I also want to talk about the commonality of throughout the world of thinking about globalism and what's that bringing us to and what it's making us susceptible to. And so
even George Soros himself has admitted that nationalism, which is the overall anti-globalist movement, is the main political movement afloat today.
Definitely, and it has a big financial backing too. That the elite really want. And so you can see this discussion's a big rabbit hole. And so it'd be neat to take just little slivers of it on several shows so we don't blow everybody's mind away, because we all have different mindsets and different ways of handling it. And I figure little slices of the pie, the overall goal is to get people to think about what's going on around them, and then getting back to prepping, why it's important to prep, because some of these circumstances, including globalism, could be an issue that could cause some catastrophic problems with our utilities and lifestyle.
Globalism is all about power and domination over the masses by the few.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute, Kyler. Can you continue talking? I'm going to go off the screen for a minute and warn my landscapers not to ring my doorbell.
Okay, go do that real quick. Yeah, I was just going to say that, of course, globalism is all about massive power globally over the few, over the masses. The few over the masses, and that's what it's really about, is coordinating that type of organization, that type of syndicate, that type of entity. And getting that coordinated is what they're doing now. They've been very coordinated up to this point. They have they're following through on Agenda 21 and Agenda 45 and some of these other proclamations and things that have come down from the United Nations, and they've followed through on these things, and they're doing a good job at it. We have to worry about what's going on with the World Citizens Council. You have to look very hard at the Council of Global Relations. You have to look at the Council on Foreign Relations. You have to look at the Trilateral Commission, and you have to look at the United Nations in order to kind of get an idea of what's going to happen in the future. If you stay up with those things and research those things, you will know, because they have it all out in plain sight now. They're not trying to really hide anything anymore. I guess they figure people are stupid. I guess they figure we have so many sheeple people on board now that it just doesn't matter what they put out anymore. They're going to try to make us alternative folks look crazy, which they're already doing in the mainstream
media. They're doing their best, aren't they?
And so, I think we should all just be very careful and very resourceful as far as researching what's going on with the Trilateral Commission, the Citizens Forum, the Citizens Council, World Council, and George Soros, as Max said, and the Rothschild family, and the Ford Foundation, and the Clinton Foundation, and others. And just be aware, be alert, and be able to put the big puzzle together, and don't just take anything that comes down the pike, and don't believe anything that just comes down the pike. Do your own research and form your own opinions, and protect yourself.
So Max, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? Well, I'll tell you. I, for the longest time, I didn't finally get shattered out of my blue pill delusions about the nature of reality till a few years ago, and I had seen enough. We know it's time to stop being paranoid about being called a conspiracy theorist. In fact, we know the term conspiracy theorist was floated by the globalist media specifically to make you feel paranoid about simply thinking for yourself. There is a globalist plan. Agenda 21 is real. And when you go look at Agenda 21, everybody looks at you right in the face and says, you're crazy, you're paranoid, you're over worrying about this, while they're busy implementing all these things. At this point, surveys have shown that a majority of Americans, like more than 70% plus, believe there is a deep state that is secretly running things. So you can stop feeling paranoid talking about it. If some ass starts braying at you that you're a paranoid idiot, laugh back at them, because anybody who's been paying the least bit attention knows, All of our major mainstream media over the last 2 decades, there were liberals as well as conservatives complaining about this, and they got rolled over. All of our media has been taken over by 6 major corporations. I mean, all your local newspapers, all your local radio stations, just about, right? More than 90% of your local news stations, your local TV stations, and all the big social media companies, including the search engine giants, they're all a massive collusive trust. You know, their corporate CEOs and vice presidents sit on each other's door, on each other's corporate boards. There's a revolving door between them. There's a revolving door between them and Washington politicians. The Democrats are somewhat the bigger offenders there in terms of corruption with Washington and big tech, but only somewhat. There's tons of filth within the Republican ranks as well. Those of us who believe there's a globalist versus nationalist fight overall see a lot of so-called conservatives and a lot of so-called libertarians as fakers. I don't necessarily need to bring out too many names, but I mean, a lot of people, for example, who are very conservative would tell you at this point you should be avoiding the National Review because they don't always tell the truth. On the left, it's the same way. Some libertarian sources, they call themselves pro-market libertarians, but they're really globalist corporatists. And one of the things you'll notice about corporatists, people who defend big corporations, they're defending big corporations that run along Chinese lines and Chinese communist lines. Big corporations are not a part of the free market, but a lot of so-called libertarians and conservatives say they are. You want to turn away from corporate media. I even heard Julian Assange's mother recently saying that just the only media you can trust is small media. And that is true. I've seen enough lies in the press to know, and I've been lied about in the press, and I've seen friends literally lied about in the press, and how all these supposedly competing media outlets, you know, they're not competing, they're colluding. You cannot trust the mainstream
media. And it's really interesting about your comment there.
Let me finish this thought. We have a right to be skeptical of anything or anybody at any time for any reason, and everybody should be having that attitude. The most important question you have from the rest of your life, and you ought to ask it every day, is who do I trust and why do I trust them? You need to be able to ask that question at any time. And there you go. That's my rant. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was noticing is I was starting to definitely agree with you as the alternative news. For example, I've been very curious about the observation observatory over in New Mexico, and so I've hooked up with about 3 or 4 different alternative newses, and what I'm seeing is old-fashioned journalism where they're actually digging and digging and digging, trying to find the answer to that. And at the same time, I watch the regular news as Florence is going on, and you can almost see how journalists don't know how to do regular news anymore. They're so into gossip and reading things and having news handed to them that to go out and actually get factual news of what's going on with the storm and the problems people are having means that they have to get out of their car, get out of their office, get their hands dirty. And so I'm seeing a struggle of journalism from our regular media trying to give us real news. And
I have witnessed this, okay, Joe Gandelman over the Moderate Voice and quite a few other people. There used to be a thriving independent blogosphere that got destroyed. A ton of people who used to be professional journalists now in their 40s, 50s, 60s, you know, have lost their jobs over the last 10, 20 years as more of these corporations took over and more cheap drones who would just write whatever their bosses wanted got in. Yeah. So most of your major newspapers now are basically blogs run by irresponsible 25, 35-year-olds with no ethics. They're just reporting what they need to report and covering butt for each other and all the organizations. They're given their marching orders. They're told the things they're allowed to talk about and things they're not. That's not me paranoid. This is what's really happening. There are journalists within the system who will tell you this is what's happening. There are journalists, once very distinguished with many awards, who are no longer working, who will tell you, yes, people like us were purged. Some of them are struggling to work independently. Some with success, some with not. The censorship is real. Cable TV is not reliable. All the big social media companies, not reliable. All the big name news sources, even the ones who label themselves conservative or liberal for that matter. I do want to put this out there, which is that there are honorable leftists and honorable liberals, and if you don't recognize that, you've also got a problem. They are out there. They are the people who were screaming about this media corporate takeover of everything and that everybody was laughing at 10, 20 years ago. But they were at least correct, right? Even some of the fools who got pulled into movements like Occupy Wall Street, okay, which I think was a controlled movement. So a lot of people who were in Occupy Wall Street were misguided. But many of the things they were complaining about were completely legitimate. So I do think it's important not to just write off your lefty friends. See who they really are, right? Because I can name some people I consider honorable leftists still fighting the fight out there, like Tom Harkin maybe, or Robert Kennedy Jr., who at least really mean what they say and have integrity and have been calling out this problem with growing censorship. Alan Dershowitz. Do remember who your real friends are. The people with honor, they were the people with integrity. Remember, a lot of right-wingers sold us out. A lot of so-called conservatives sold us out. And a lot of liberals were honorably pointing to some of these problems. So that's just a rant I give out once in a while to remind people. I remember being slapped down by some so-called market conservatives when I started raising the alarm bells that we're letting these corporations take over all this media. And I was told I was paranoid and I was anti-market and I was some kind of socialist who just didn't understand market forces. But no, me and a whole bunch of others, people on the left, on the right, we were right to scream about this takeover. And now we're living with it, and it's very Orwellian. So whatever that's worth, don't just auto write off people because of their politics. See where they're at now.
I agree with that completely. Kyler, I need to start wrapping it up. I want to make sure you get our closing statements.
Closing statements are that just hope everybody keeps listening. We're going to be moving on with this show, and we're going to be giving some really good information out and empowering people and uplifting people, and we're going to be a storm to contend with. I mean, this subject is a very good subject, and it's a subject that's come at the right time, and I just want everybody to tune in and keep watching for the post and the promos that come out that Rob puts out, and of course, visit me over at Fourth and Baker at Blog Talk Radio when you can. And of course, you can find me over there at Good Talk Radio with Rob Scribner also.
I think, we've kind of been brainstorming about this show here. And I think this show is going to be one that belongs to me and Kyler to have guests on. And we're actually talking about splitting out a regular channel for anybody that participates with We Want Real News to literally be able to do their own little shows anytime they want during the week on current events, whether it's 5 minutes worth or a half hour worth. And then we'll actually broadcast them or put them in some of our social media. So that's in the works. And we're trying to figure out all the ins and outs of that. And at the same time, we're trying to get kind of a team put together here. So we're really excited to have Max participating with us. And we'll find everybody's little niches. And if they want to do some little independent niche things with us, we'll allow them to do it. And because my ideas would refrain Max from being able to open up to do what he likes to do, and at the same time I know Kyler has a particular way he likes to go, and it'd be nice to let you guys have your own independent time with We Want Real News, and then bring us all together and have really good, wholesome, and down-to-earth discussions. And the old-fashioned kind, the kind where you have opposing views and all that stuff and still not hate each other. It's amazing. It's actually fun. We hope to be a good model of that. So, hey, Max, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You brought a lot to the show. And Kyler, of course, I've always appreciate you guys having you here. And we really look forward to doing this again. And I'd like to invite Max again to join us as we move on. We'll keep the same subject, but we'll go off on a different tangent. So, and then eventually work our way into bigger things.
Well, everybody say hi to us on redpillreligion.com, and God bless everybody.
Yes, definitely. So make sure before I put this on YouTube and stuff that I get a copy of all your links so I can get them in the description for everybody. And I urge you to go visit Kyler Davenport. He has his own show with us, Fourth and Baker, on Good Talk Radio. and you can catch him on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. He also has his own show that goes even beyond that. I believe he does like 5 shows a week on Blog Talk Radio. And I have a link of that in the description already, and I'll get Max's stuff information in there before I publish to YouTube. So once again, I want to thank everybody for being on the show. Thank you, listeners, and our new listeners. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our shows, and make sure that you get invited to any of the live broadcasts we do by just making sure you like our pages and follow our pages. So we appreciate that. So once again, people, thank you very much, and we'll see everybody next time, okay? Bye, guys.
Thanks a lot. See you, Max. See you, Rob.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to Short and Sweet with Rob Scribner and Kyler Davenport and our special guest, Max. Please take the time to like, subscribe, and share our videos all over. Sharing really helps us. Thank you, guys.